If you were a gamer in the late 2000s, you probably remember the golden years of the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3 era, the time when shooters were heavy-hitting, visceral, and unapologetically fun. This is exactly where Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2 shine. It's not trying to reinvent the wheel. Instead, it's embracing what made those old school games so enjoyable. You can't help but get hit with the wave of nostalgia when you start playing. From the chunky, weighty feel of your character, Lieutenant Titus, to the satisfying heft of your weapon, everything feels like a callback to an era when gameplay was king. Games like Gears of War come to mind with their heavy focus on brutal, close-quarter executions. But instead of copying that simple formula, Space Marine 2 elevates it. The control feels tight, responsive, and everything you do, whether it's blasting enemies from afar or cutting them down with a chainsword, feels incredibly impactful. What's refreshing is that Space Marine 2 doesn't try to complicate things. It's a straightforward, action-packed shooter that knows what it wants to be. It's reminiscent of those days when games were content with being great at one thing, and Space Marine 2 excels at being an adrenaline-fueled power trip. It's not bogged down by complex mechanics or unnecessary features, but rather focuses on delivering pure, unfiltered fun. And in a gaming landscape filled with overcomplicated systems, this is a refreshing change of pace. One of the best things about Space Marine 2 is how it seamlessly blends familiar elements from some of the best shooters of the last 2 decades. The heavy, tactical nature of Gears of War is present in its combat. The futuristic setting and massive epic battles bring to mind of Halo. And then there's that speed, intensity, and sheer violence of Doom. It's like someone took the best parts of each of these games, threw them into a blender, and came out with something that feels fresh, while evoking the classics we still grew up with. The game's narrative, while simple, is effective. You play as Lieutenant Titus, a superhuman space marine, battling endless hordes of tyranny. It's a classic Warhammer 40k scenario, a universe where there's always war and it's your job to lead the charge. And while the story isn't going to win any wars for complexity, that's not what you're here for. You're here for epic battles, the waves of enemies, and that nostalgic feeling of being the ultimate powerhouse in a world of chaos. In a time where so many games feel the need to shoehorn in layers of RPG mechanics or over-complex narratives, Space Marine 2 takes us back to a simpler era, an era where the focus was on gameplay itself. It's a game that respects your time, never forcing you to wade through hours of tutorials or layers of unnecessary mechanics. You pick up a controller, you jump in, and within minutes you're in the thick of battle. So if you're someone who looks back fondly on the golden years of gaming, Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2 is going to feel like a breath of fresh air. It's a throwback to the time when games didn't try to be everything. They just wanted to be great at what they did. And this game, with its relentless action and nostalgic gameplay, is exactly that. Let's talk about the visuals. Because wow, Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2 delivers a graphical powerhouse. From the moment you step into this grimdark universe, it's clear that a lot of love and attention went into the crafting the environments, character models, and every blood-soaked battle. The Warhammer 40k universe is known for its towering gothic architecture, intricate details, and larger-than-life design. Space Marine 2 brings all of that to life with stunning realism. Whether you're standing on the edge of a massive battlefield with tyranids swarming from every direction, or taking a moment to admire the detailed armor of your Space Marine, the game never stops impressing visually. There's a weight and gravitas to everything. The way your character stomps around the battlefield, the brutal execution moves that send limbs flying, and the sheer scale of environments. Everything feels big, bold, and brutal. The execution animations deserve their own spotlight. This is where Space Marine 2 really leans into that visceral, over-the-top action we've come to expect from Warhammer. Each execution feels like a mini cutscene, and they never get old. Whether you're cutting down an enemy with your chainsword or smashing them into the ground with a brutal punch, it's a constant adrenaline rush. The executions are so well done, they almost feel like a reward for battling through hordes of enemies. It's almost worth noting that these executions aren't just for show. They serve a mechanical purpose, offering health and other benefits when you pull them off, meaning you're constantly encouraged to get up close and personal. This blend of style and substance is what makes Space Marine 2 stand out. The gameplay and the visuals are tightly intertwined, making sure every moment feels satisfying, both in how it plays and how it looks. Performance-wise, Space Marine 2 runs smoothly on all platforms, and that's a relief given how graphically intense the game is. The environments are packed with detail, and even during the most chaotic battles, the game doesn't seem to suffer from frame drops or other performance issues. On the next-gen consoles and high-end PCs, the game looks absolutely phenomenal, with sharp textures, dynamic lighting, and smooth animations that really bring the action to life. The enemies move with fluidity, and the chaos on screen never feels overwhelming, thanks to the game's clean and readable visual design. The gore and brutality of Space Marine 2 are cranked up to 11. And while that might not be for everyone, it's definitely in line with what Warhammer fans have come to expect. The game isn't shy about embracing its darker side, and that's part of what makes combat so enjoyable. There's a certain satisfaction in seeing your enemies explode into a shower of blood and limb, and the game's top-tier graphics only makes these moments more memorable. In short, Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2 is a visual treat, and the attention to detail in both the environments and the brutal combat animations makes it a joy to play. From the intricacies of the Warhammer universe to the sheer thrill of landing and execution, this game makes every moment feel cinematic. Now, let's dig into what makes Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2 a blast to play. The gameplay itself. Right from the get-go, the controls feel tight, responsive, and designed for action. Whether you're mowing down enemies with the massive bolter or slicing through hordes with the chainsword, the combat is fast, brutal, and most importantly, satisfying. The mix of ranged and melee combat is seamless, letting you switch between the two without skipping a beat. This fluidity is one of the game's strongest points, keeping you constantly engaged and on your toes. One of the things that Space Marine 2 nails is pacing. The game throws wave after wave of enemies at you, but it never feels repetitive. The sheer variety of enemies, from the fast Tyranids to the Chaos Agents, you're constantly forced to adapt, shifting between different weapons and tactics depending on your situation. And while there's a definite rhythmed combat, with periods of intense action followed by brief moments to catch your breath, the game never loses its momentum. And let's not forget the co-op mode. While the single-player campaign is where the game shines, jumping into co-op with friends takes the fun to a whole other level. Space Marine 2 doesn't try to overcomplicate its multiplayer, it's all about diving in with a few buddies and wrecking havoc together. The synergy between players is where the magic happens. You can cover each other's backs, unleash devastating combos, and coordinate attacks in a way that makes the experience more dynamic and chaotic in the best way possible. Playing with friends also adds a layer of strategy to the game. While you can absolutely tear through enemies solo, having a partner means you can approach battles with more tactics. Maybe one player lays down suppressing fire from a distance while the other rushes in for close quarters combat. Or you can both go full berserker mode, tearing through everything in sight. The choice is yours, and that's what makes it so fun. The co-op system doesn't force you into rigid roles, allowing for more organic, team-based chaos. On top of that, the game scales well in co-op. Enemies become more challenging and numerous, meaning that you and your team will need to stay sharp. It's not just a mindless slaughter, though there's plenty of that too. You'll need to communicate and work well together, especially in the tougher encounter. The satisfaction of pulling off a well-coordinated attack with your squad is one of the game's high points. There's also a nice sense of progression. As you battle through waves of enemies, you'll unlock new abilities and gear that can enhance your playstyle. It's not bogged down by overly complex RPG elements. The balance between accessible and rewarding is spot on here, allowing you to feel powerful without having to constantly manage stats. All in all, the gameplay in Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2 delivers exactly what fans want. Fast-paced, intense combat that's both challenging and fun. Whether you're playing solo or teaming up with friends, the experience is equally rewarding, making it a perfect throwback to the glory days of gaming with a modern twist. Alright, before we jump back into the action-packed chaos of Space Marine 2, let's take a quick break to talk about something equally awesome, our very own Satiny merch. If you're a fan of cool, stylish, and totally unique shirts, you're gonna want to check this out. First up, we've got the Bad Generation Club tee, and then we have Mama, Look I'm Living Like That. Both of these shirts are made from top quality materials, super soft, and comfortable for long gaming sessions or everyday wear. Now let's get back to Space Marine 2 and see how this game has taken us back to the golden years of gaming. One of the most refreshing aspects of Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2 is its unapologetic focus on fun. In an era where many games feel the need to weave in subtle messaging, complex social commentaries, or heavy-handed narratives, Space Marine 2 goes in the opposite direction. It's a straightforward, action-packed experience, and that's what makes it such a joy to play. The game is clear in its intent. You're here to fight hordes of enemies, unleash destruction, and enjoy every brutal second of it. There's no need for nuanced political undertones or hidden agendas. Instead, the game sticks to what made classics from the 360 era so beloved: pure, unfiltered entertainment. Whether you're ripping through Chaos Agents or Tyranids, you can fully immerse yourself in the chaos without feeling like the game is trying to deliver some grand message. It's all about adrenaline, the action, and the thrill of battle. And it's this commitment to keeping things fun that sets Space Marine 2 apart from so many other modern titles. In a time where almost every big game release comes with some sort of commentary on current events or societal issues, Space Marine 2 is a breath of fresh air for those who just want a game for the sake of gaming. Don't get me wrong, there's definitely room for deeper, more narrative-driven experiences in gaming, but sometimes you just want to boot up a game, turn off your brain, and dive into a world of non-stop action. This game nails that feeling perfectly. The beauty of Space Marine 2 is that it knows exactly what it is. It's a game for the gamers who miss the days when gameplay took center stage, without being weighed down by any unnecessary complexity. You play as a Space Marine, one of the most iconic figures in the Warhammer 40k universe, and your mission is simple: annihilate anything that stands in your way. Whether you're playing with friends or playing alone, there's no shortage of intense, blood-pumping moments that keep you glued to the screen. This approach is especially appealing in today's gaming landscape, with so many games feeling the pressure to include layers of depth and meaning. Space Marine 2 strips all that away and brings it back to basics. It's a callback to a time when developers focused more on the moment-to-moment gameplay than crafting intricate, multi-layered plots. And honestly, that's exactly what a lot of players are craving right now. Even in terms of its aesthetic, Space Marine 2 keeps it refreshingly simple. There's no flashy, over-stylized art direction, no symbolism hiding in the background. Instead, the game is brutally honest in its presentation. The world is dark, gritty, and grim, and that's all it needs to be. The Warhammer 40k universe is a place of endless war, and this place leans into that without any pretense. It's unapologetically about combat and carnage, and that's a huge part of its charm. There's also a certain freedom that comes with this approach. Without the burden of having to analyze deeper meanings or hidden messages, you can fully immerse yourself in the gameplay. In short, Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2 is a rare gem in today's market. It's a game that isn't afraid to be what it is, a throwback to a time when fun was the main objective. And in a gaming landscape where many titles feel they have to deliver a message, Space Marine 2 stands out by simply offering a good time. So if you're looking for a game that lets you lose yourself in epic battles without worrying about anything other than the next wave of enemies, this is it. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel for more reviews, and drop a comment below if you have already played Space Marine 2. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you're in the mood for some awesome merch, check out our store for those killer tees we mentioned earlier. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next video.
Baby, you love me, you lied. I break off 50, I get you all laced up. You was true to me, you switching sides. I gave you my heart, baby, that shit not paid for. You looked at me right in my eyes. You say that you love me, but I ain't no genie. I work every day, baby, I keep it 50. Put on for my city, nigga, I want my chicken. You want a Birkin, but I want a Lexus. I slap on that booty, your Lexus, Texas. I don't give a fuck, you's an activist. Just back the fuck up.